it is my pleasure to introduce Ann Long, a flower farmer educator and the owner of Dahlia House in Skagit Valley. And she is known for her curated selection of bulbs, forms, and tubers. She also offers workshops and retreats that connect people through flowers. I met Anne at the Northwest Flower and Garden Show, and she was just so vibrant and full of energy. And I just was like, would you be interested in coming all the way to Orcas Island? And she just jumped and said, yes, right on the spot. Yes. And here she is with her husband, Taylor.
Yeah.
So they
store.
Yeah.
Taylor.
Yeah. So thank you for making your way here. So Anne specializes in making gardening approachable while showcasing the beauty and abundance flowers bring. And Anne will take an in-depth look into her three beloved cut flowers, Anemones, Ranunculus, and Peonies, and share practical tips on how to successfully grow these flowers in our region. And thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to have you here.
I'm so excited.
Yes, thank you. So over to you.
Thank you very much. So when Laura asked me if I'd like to come, and you're saying, oh, thank you so much for coming over to Orcas. This place is gorgeous. So I should show you guys a view on my phone. We stayed at a place where it was right on the water, and Taylor and I were just blown away. This is his first time to Orcas. This is I've only been here one other time with my book club, actually. And so, yeah, thanks so much for this opportunity. Actually, can someone pinch me, because this is my favorite thing to do. As my business has kind of through all the bumps and everything else just continues to grow. It's kind of like a dahlia, where it's not going to just sit in the ground. It's like determined to grow against slugs and all the kind of things that are around it. I find myself more and more kind of behind the computer and doing just a lot of other sorts of things, but this is my favorite. So I know that Laura said 40 minutes for the presentation, I think, and then 15 minutes for questions, but guys, I got all day. So, and I am here. So, I will keep to those time parameters for you all. But yeah, afterwards, if you have questions about other things, I grow, gosh, the list is getting really long now, but my probably peonies, anemones, ranunculus, and dahlias are the things that are my, dahlias were my gateway drug. And then we moved to peonies, and then anemone and ranunculus quickly followed, and the rest is kind of history. Flower math tends to go like that, just kind of exponentially. So anyway, that is my background. And so if any of you guys have any questions about those things, just see me after and pick my brain, and can't promise you good answers, but we'll try. We'll see. So yes, I am from the Midwest. Taylor and I moved with, I think, 2 girls. We had 2 girls at that point. Now we have 4, to the Skagit Valley. We're both from Missouri. And to my knowledge, I hadn't seen a dahlia ever. And we pull into Skagit Valley, and there's like this huge garden, and it was amazing. And I said, babe, pull over. And so we pulled over, and I said, because there was a man out there working in his garden, I said, hey, can you just tell me what some of these flowers are? And he said, oh, these are dahlias. I was like, okay, well, which ones are dahlias? And he was like, these are all dahlias. And I was like, I'm sorry, this is amazing. So anyway, that's just an encouragement to go ahead and pull over on the side of the road and talk to random strangers, because this might happen to you. Yeah. Anyway, so today, yes, I'm going to be talking about ranunculus and anemones, which are very, very similar. There's a lot of overlap between the 2 of those. And then peonies at the end. Peonies are a little bit easier, especially here, to grow. So yeah, I'll save that for the end. So in terms of ranunculus, the first thing that I like to tell people is I've grown them now for 11 years. I actually haven't grown them. I killed them for the first 3 years that I tried to grow them. So there are different genetics. There are different genetic lines of ranunculus. So when you are going to a nursery in March or April and you grab up a ranuncula plant, that plant here is probably one that's been bred, the genetics were bred in Southern California. And so it will, you can plant it up in your pot outside and it's going to die in just a couple weeks after it runs its course, because those types of genetics can't handle the kind of weather and wet we get here. So there's three main types of ranunculus. There's, I'm trying to pronounce it with the actual pronunciation, Telecote. Those are, if anyone has ever been down to Carlsbad in California, or seen the ranunculus fields, they are actually bred there. They are the ones that came up with those genetics. And then so they're made for more arid, warm weather. There is Amandine, which is, so I don't know if any of you guys are familiar, if you've looked at ranunculus online, but they have varieties like Shamalo and that's like the only one that's coming to mind actually right now. But beautiful, beautiful flowers. But those are probably the most temperamental. And so even around here in the Pacific Northwest, we have really good climate for ranunculus, but amandines are really, I find that they are too picky for me. I want the things that I grow in my garden to be sweet to me, even if I semi-neglect them. So yeah, so the third and probably at least 90% of the only kind of ranunculus that I grow and sell are from Italy. So they're the Italian ranunculus. They are bred in Italy and by one family. They've been doing it over 50 years and they have got the genetics down. They also have so many gorgeous varieties coming down the pipeline that I am so excited about. They let me trial some of them sometimes in my gardens, and my neighbors love it because they'll be walking down the sidewalk and like spot a new one, and oh, it's so exciting. It's so fun. But anyway, so if you are new to growing anemones or ranunculus, I highly suggest that you start with the Italians, and then kind of get your feet under you and go from there. So first, I will talk in terms or let you guys know that ranuncula corms look like they're called corms, not seeds. So already a note, now you can be fancy and smart. You say ranuncula corms. You can also call them seeds, but basically they're dry like a seed, but they look like a little upside down octopus, kind of. And anemone corms look like kind of like a rock, like a little teardrop. But it's amazing when they get wet. So before I plant either of them, I soak them overnight. And they plump up, they almost double in size. And basically what you're doing is it's basically telling the corm, hey, it's time to go. It's time to wake up. And you're giving it a really good drink of water and hydrating. Think of like a bear coming out of hibernation. That's what you're doing for your ranuncula corms. So what I like to do is plant them really close together. I actually don't know anyone that plants them as close together as I do. I do that for two reasons. One, because it encourages stem length, and I do a lot of like flower design. I get to do a lot of flower design. And so it's sometimes really helpful to have longer stems because you can do more with the arrangements. So I plant them closer together because they have to kind of compete and reach for the sun. That goes for a lot of different kinds of flowers, by the way. If you're wanting longer stems, a lot of times, as long as the dirt that you're planting them is fortified well enough, like I basically just fortify mine with compost, lots and lots of compost, because compost basically is like a slow release fertilizer and it's organic, so it's fantastic. Yeah, as long as there's enough food in there to last them, they will be amazing. The other reason I plant them close together is because then you get more flowers crammed into your beds. So yeah, that is maybe equally as important for me. So when I plant them, I soak them overnight. Online, you'll read you need to keep keep some water running, keep oxygen. Don't worry about any of that stuff. You just soak them overnight. And like I said, they'll plump up in size. Then you can plant them. I heavily amend with compost. I probably put 3 or 4 inches of compost on top and scratch it in. Sometimes I don't. And then I plant ranunculus only about an inch or 2 deep. And anemone corms, I'll plant 3 or probably around 3 inches deep. And ranunculus are like peonies. We'll get to this when we talk about peonies, but if you plant peonies too deep, I don't know if any of you guys have ever done that, but they'll green up. You'll get a lot of greens, but you won't get a lot of flowers on them. So if that's something that's happening with your peonies, it's very possible that they're planted too deep or not in full sun. So, yes, only plant your ranunculus about an inch deep. I plant mine 3 inches apart, 3 to 4 inches apart. Granted, I take mine out because where I put my ranunculus is where I also put my dahlias. So, so they can also be planted really close together. A dahlia ranunculus will propagate if you give them enough food. They will propagate in your gardens, which is crazy. And so if you are going to keep them in and like just want to plant it once and they're going to be in the landscape, you want to forget about it, I would probably plant them like 4 or 5 inches apart. But I like to cram lots in. So, and then, yeah, that's just about that. That's all I do. I sometimes sprinkle a balanced fertilizer. Where we live in Mount Vernon, we have a place called the Country Store, and we can get 25 or 50-pound bags of Nature's Intent. It's an organic fertilizer. It's very well balanced. So you basically just want to have a well balanced fertilizer that's not very high in nitrogen, because if it's high in nitrogen, this also applies to so many other flowers. You're going to get a lot of greens. It's going to green up for you really, really well, but it's not actually going to it's going to put more energy into the greening up than it is going to put into the flowers. So sometimes if you have like these plants that look so healthy and they're not producing as much flowers, I would check your fertilizer and see if it's really high in nitrogen. That you probably want to switch. So another thing that's super important, probably one of the most important things to understanding how anemones and ranunculus grow is temperature. So basically ranunculus wake up. They start to wake up right around 50 degrees. That's when they can, so if you try to start them lower than that, they're not going to wake up. They are going to be that hibernating bear. But between 50 and 60 degrees is their sweet spot. 55 if you want to treat them like Goldilocks. And then ranunculus wake up around 50, and then they'll go dormant when temperatures hit around 80 degrees. Not like one random day, but sometimes we'll get 80s, but like when the 80 degrees are here to stay, a lot of times that's when they go dormant. Anemones are the exact same, just 10 degrees lower. So anemones wake up around 40 degrees and they go dormant around 70 degrees. So anemones will start blooming first. They have a really long bloom window. And here we get to enjoy that because of the temperature. The time that we have those temps here is, think about the time of year that it gets over 70, in between 40 and 70, especially on the island. I don't know. I have a good friend on Friday Harbor, and they seem to have in the winter, it's like 5 degrees warmer than it is there. And in the summer, it's like 5 degrees cooler. I don't know and I'm sure that you guys live at different parts of the island, and so you experience little microclimates everywhere. But it's still really good. These are really good temperature windows that the Italian ranunculus have for where we live. So, so when you're planting, and especially when you fall plant, the basic reason you would fall plant is that it helps them to kind of get growing and established, just like fall planting trees. It's much easier on them to plant them in the fall. And around here, they just can't, ranunculus in general can't freeze. The Italian varieties, because this is being recorded, I'm not going to tell you how cold they've gotten in my yard. But we'll just say you can check the history of Mount Vernon temperature if you want. I'm sure Google has that somewhere. And I've only had them die twice with zero protection, like no frost spot, no nothing. It was 8 degrees. And I would have died too if I was outside. So anyway, they are very, very resilient. But so when you plant them in the fall, one of the huge benefits is that in the spring, they'll be up and ready to go sooner. So you're going to hit that curve a lot, the temperature curve a lot warmer. And so instead of blooming for like 5 to 6 weeks, you're going to get 7 to 8 weeks of blooms out of them. Now, at this point, does anybody know, I'm sure somebody knows about succession planting here, what I mean when I say succession planting. So like take sunflowers. If you have sunflower seeds, you can plant some and, plant some, I don't know, in April or May. You can plant some every 3 weeks until probably, I don't know, maybe August, and you will just continue to have so many sunflowers coming up because they come up, they bloom for a certain amount of time, and then they'll go dormant or they'll die off. But you've already planted some, so it's basically extending your season, your sunflower season, from this big to this big. You can actually do that because we live around here and we have these temperature windows that are the sweet spot. You can do that with ranunculus. So I have one time in my life had my act together so much. I've got 4 girls, and so if something's going to die, it needs to be the plants. So I really have only been able to pull this off once. But I have done 4 successions of ranunculus. So I planted some right around now, like sometime in October. I planted another round in December, like mid-December. I planted another round late February and another round right around April 1st. And I had ranunculus blooms for over 3 months. And it was my favorite. It was so amazing. I could not believe it. They just kept coming. So I will say that I think it was either 2 or 3 years ago, we had at least where we were, it was super cold, and then all of a sudden it was really, really hot in May. We had like a 3-week ranuncula bloom season, and they all died, and everybody that I knew just wanted to quit. It was very sad. So we can't control Mother Nature. I'm giving parameters. The fact that we live here in the Pacific Northwest, it's amazing and helps our chances of getting a lot of blooms during that time. So I can't remember my phone's over there. I'm thinking about what to talk about next. Oh, okay. So pre-sprouting. Has anybody heard about pre-sprouting ranunculicorms or anemones? First of all, I never pre-sprout anemones because they are so slow to get going that I don't think that it helps. Pre-sprouting basically is where it's treating them even a little bit more like Goldilocks. So you'll soak them overnight. And then what I do is I get like a casserole pan or something in my whatever, it doesn't matter, something that's about 3 inches thick. You can get a seed tray, and you can even put them in like individual seed sections to keep their rootlets from intertwining if you accidentally leave them in the garage for like 2 months. And it's never happened. But I lied, that has happened twice. And actually one time my cat slept on them unbeknownst to me for several nights and then tipped them over. So they still bloom that year because I had the Italian varieties, but that was sad. So you put about 1 inch of dirt, and I like to pre-moisten the dirt. You don't want to, ranunculus don't like to be in a puddle. A lot of things don't like to be in a puddle, but it needs to be pretty moist. So think about if you grabbed up the dirt like this and squeezed it in your hand, you wouldn't want a bunch of water running down, but you would want to, when it opened up, to have it be kind of a clump of dirt. I don't know. It's like a partially wrung out sponge. These are not scientific. The Italians are very forgiving. Just don't have them soaked in a puddle, in your casserole dish. So basically I put down about 1 inch of soil. I put the ranunculus claws side down into the soil and put another layer of about 1 inch of soil on top of those. It doesn't need to have any fertilizer in them because you're just saying, hey, it's time to wake up. And you're waking them up really, really gently because then you're going to go pop those in the spot. It doesn't need to have light. It just needs to be between 50 and 60 degrees. And they are going to be like okay, let's go, let's do this. They're gonna give you a stretch. And then all of a sudden in like probably 2 weeks or so, 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the temperature, when you look at them, they're gonna have these little tiny rootlets about sometimes it takes a month if it's like right at 50, but they'll have these rootlets, and then when you plant them outside, then they just really are great and take off. The only times I don't pre-sprout anemones, a lot of people do. But again, because we live in this part of the country with these temperatures, like I've got people that grow ranunculus in Hawaii, and I've got people that grow ranunculus in Alaska. So they have to be finagling they've got to be my Alaska folk have to start them inside and then bring them outside basically for their 5 weeks of, it's not 80 yet, but it's also not freezing, So anyway, that's how you pre-sprout. And like I said, pre-sprouting is the same kind of benefit to fall planting. Instead of blooming for 5 or 6 weeks and being done, you're going to extend the bloom window to like 7 or 8. So whenever I plant in the fall, I'm not sure about orchis actually, but we're not in really a rain shadow. We do get pretty wet starting around now. It's pretty consistently wet. So I just soak mine. I don't worry about doing the whole pre-sprouting because the weather right now basically pre-sprouts them for us outside. So I never worry about pre-sprouting ranunculus now. However, starting in December, February for sure, and April, I will pre-sprout to get them going. So in terms of time, from when you start to when they end, basically ranunculus take about 90 days in pretty good conditions to wake up and till the first bloom. And then they will bloom for like, 7 or 8 weeks if you fall planted them or pre-sprouted them. So what you need to do is back it up and say, okay, so I'm going to need about 3 months from the time I start this till I get my first bloom. And then there's going to be 7 to 8 weeks that are blooming. So that's about 5 months from the time you start them to the time they're going to go dormant. So if you are succession planting, or you are like, if you've got a wedding or some other event that you're wanting to have them for, granted, like I said, we can't completely control Mother Nature. A lot of it depends on temperature with these guys, but it's usually about 90 days for ranunculus. It's about 120 days at least for anemones, 120 to 150 days. So if you want anemones this spring, I would, especially around here, I would plant them now. And they will be amazing. They will give you, each corm will give you probably about 12 to 15 stems. They are extremely prolific. They're cut and come again. I don't know if you guys know what cut and come again is, but they're just like dahlias, not like peonies, where peonies you cut it and that's your stem. But yeah, the more you cut your ranunculus, the more blooms you'll get. So I'll have people come to me and say, hey, I only got 3. And I was like, what? So, we talk about like, I'm like, did you compost? Did they have enough sun? Because they like, ranunculus like full sun. I forgot to say that. Full sun for ranunculus, part shade or full sun for anemones. They're kind of like daffodils. They'll thrive in either spot. So, and it turns out that I totally lost my train of thought.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right. You guys are awesome. Great. So yeah, they didn't cut them. So almost any plant and flower that we grow is going to try to reproduce. So they're going to get to the seed stage as soon as they can. And then if you let them start growing seeds, that's where they're going to put all of their energy. So especially with cut and come again, that's why the more you cut them, the more flowers you will get, because they aren't getting to that seed stage where they're putting a bunch of energy into growing seeds. So, and so that's, they'll have just one bloom, it'll have a seed head, they'll have another one. And I'm like, girl, go out, cut your flowers, like put them in your bathroom, put them next to your kitchen sink. You'll get more, they love to be generous and to share. Are there any questions? I know that we said we'd keep them to the end, but is anything so far with what I've said, has anybody got questions about that? Yeah.
If you're waiting to do it until like say February, how do you store those corms?
That's a great question. She said if we're waiting to to plant them until February, how do you store them? And corms, it's really great. They're like seeds. You think of them like sweet pea seeds, they'll last years, actually. They just can't get wet. They need to be stored in an extremely dry environment. And room temperature is fine. They just need to not freeze. I have found a gigantic bag of them behind the fertilizer in my garage after 2 years and planted them up without soaking or pre-sprouting or anything on actually it was my sister-in-law. We were leaving on a vacation. I was like, Jane, please, can you go put these in? I can't believe I still have these. And they bloomed amazing. So yeah, and that is one thing when you're, if you are trying to source a specific type, especially like an Italian variety, they aren't always available year round. And so like when I will order up what I can order, and then when they're gone for the year. So I order them one time and I get them one time, and that lasts for the entire year. And then I won't have them available once they sell out until the year after. So the good thing about that is that you can purchase them in the middle of the summer, whenever it is they come available, and just stick them in the garage behind your fertilizer. And but they also make really good gifts for because they're so tiny and lightweight and easy to ship for flower lovers. So it's kind of like sending a Rice Krispie treat instead of like a brownie in the mail. I don't know. I just made that up. Yeah. So anyway, and there was another question.
Right. So you said that in general, you don't want to have too high of nitrogen in your fertilizer. So in the NPK ratio, can you tell me what percentage of nitrogen we should be targeting?
That's a great question.
I'm really bad about putting too much nitrogen.
Oh yeah. Well, nitrogen in your grass is great.
I know for your
Yeah.
vegetables.
Yeah.
Okay.
The question is, what is the kind of balanced fertilizer? So I think, I'm not sure what nature's intent is, but exactly, but like even 10-10-10, I wouldn't go over 12-12-12
Yeah.
because I think that's just going to be too much for them. So I really I use compost for everything as a slow release fertilizer. And then just will add different things like calcium for my dahlias so that the tubers store better, and different things. But Ranunculus, lots of things are heavy feeders. Ranunculus and anemones are both heavy feeders. So compost is the best. But yeah, so I wouldn't go over like 10-10-10.
Right. Yeah, our soil around here our compost can be low in nitrogen. So it's good to, it's good for us to augment it to some nutrients.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, if your soil is low in nitrogen,
Yeah.
you can definitely do one where is nitrogen the second number? I think
It's the
it
first
is.
number.
Oh, the first number. Learn something new every day. Thanks, guys.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I think that it's actually the big in nature's intent. I think that the nitrogen is the biggest number, but it's like 734 or something like that. So it's really low. It's like, a lot of times I'll give them another, well, actually, yeah, I'll say this. I will do compost and some nature's intent fertilizer at time of planting. And then once you're in your bloom window, if you having these like huge double, like these blooms are the petal count, everyone is over like 300 petals. It's ridiculous. But they'll start, if there's not enough nutrients in the soil, they will start throwing out some singles. So I like to try to about 3 or 4 weeks in, just go and scratch in some more fertilizer right before a rain, and that will get you just continued more doubles, more huge ranunculus. One of the amazing things about ranunculus, I don't know if I said this yet, is that they're cut like I can't remember what it's called now. I'm like blanking on it, but basically their time in the vase, you can get 10 days in a vase, no problem, as long as you don't have them sitting in like the direct sunlight. They are they have incredible long base life. So anemones, you can get probably like 5 or 6 real good days in. So yeah, those are both really good questions. Yes.
And you just say no to this. Are any of these plants deer resistant?
Okay, so the question was, are any of these deer resistant? Here's the deal. So across the country, they won't touch anemones and ranunculus.
Oh.
But There's something that I refer to as island deer. Those like basically will eat your peanut butter and jelly sandwich off of your picnic table. They completely know English, like fully. They could teach English. And so though they will nibble on your ranunculus, especially like the young ones might come through and the mamas will be like, no. But the little ones are like going at it for a little while and they're like, oh, this is gross. So yes, so that's my qualifier. And all of the times I've taught this about how to grow these, I've had 3 people say that the deer went after their ranunculus. I don't think any of them have gone after anemones. It's kind of like tulips and daffs, they'll go after your tulips, not your daffs. But so yeah, I haven't heard of any of them going after anemones, but there's been three people. But I've taught probably thousands of people at this point about how to grow these flowers. So that ratio is still pretty good. But it's just my qualifier. You guys are dealing with island deer. Yeah, they are like, they will not get out of the way for your car. They're totally basically domesticated. So yeah. So I'm trying to think if there's any, harvesting, when to harvest. So your ranunculus, you want to harvest when they are in marshmallow stage. Basically, they feel like a marshmallow. So they're colored up, but they're not open at all. Now you can have two blooms that look the exact same, but when you squish them, one is hard and one is squishy. You want to go with the squishy one. What happens is it'll still open, but it's kind of like dahlias. If you cut them a little bit too soon, they will do kind of good things, but they won't last quite as long as they will be quite as full. So if you wait till you get the squish, that's the perfect time. You can also go out and, grab them when they're blown open. But those are only going to last probably 3 days before their petals start to fall. So the 10-day, you get the 10-day with the marshmallow stage. And then with anemones, I have heard online that the best time to, this just made me laugh. The best time to cut your anemones is when they've opened once at night and then closed. And then you can cut them. I don't know if people like put videos on their like anemones or how they know that, but I feel like anybody that has any sort of interest in their life or would not know that math. So my rule of thumb is anytime you want to wait, like anemones will start to kind of open even when they're a little bit actually, when both anemones and ranunculus start to bloom, and sometimes when they go dormant, you'll get, but especially when they start, sometimes you'll just get a little 1-inch stem, and then there'll be a flower on top, and people are kind of like, well, what's going on? This is like a genetic problem with, and it's not. They're just kind of waking up and getting started. So sometimes you get some really little stems at first, but then anemones should have at least 12 inches of stem length. And that's kind of if they're in full sun. Again, if they're in a little bit of shade, they're probably going to get a little bit taller because they're going to be reaching for it. So if you want to watch them open and close and give me feedback on if that was amazing, I totally welcome that. But yeah, I just I cut the anemones when they're over 12 inches, when my plants are rocking and they're over 12 inches. And if you notice, like the centers of anemones are unbelievably gorgeous and they have like iridescence to them. So it's usually like an indigo iridescence if they've got the dark center. If it's light, it's anywhere from like a chartreuse to a golden to like, they're just ridiculous. Anyway, so for the first like 3 or 4 days, they will have a really good iridescence on them. Starting around day 4 or 5, the pollen, they will turn solid black, like a matte black. And then the pollen will start to fall, and the pollen is black. So it's really interesting. But once the pollen starts to fall, I just deadhead them at that point. I won't bring them inside because they'll only last like a day or so. So if the pollen has started to fall, then I would go for a newer one. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Does anybody have any other questions about anemones and ranunculus from what I've said? Okay.
So this is just my opinion.
Okay. Love it.
And I bought a house a few years ago in the North Beach neighborhood, and the soil is sandy.
Yes.
And somebody planted Japanese anemones, and they became very invasive.
Yes.
They are, and I've been trying to eradicate them for 5 years,
Mhm.
and I still have.
Yes. So I'm so glad you brought that up, Ginger. So, the question is, what she said is, hey, I have had Japanese anemones, in my yard, and they're basically a noxious weed at this point and overtaking everything, trying to eradicate them. These types of anemones, so Japanese anemones are, fall blooming, and they get like 3, sometimes 4 feet tall. It's a totally different genetic than spring anemones. So spring anemones won't get more than 15 inches. And so the corms that I sell are only for spring. And they may, if you have really, well, amended soil and give them all the nutrients, they may double every year or maybe every 2 years, but they are not gonna go crazy at all. I mean, I planted a corm, or my sister-in-law, because I removed mine, but my sister-in-law has planted corms, and they've lasted like 8 to 10 years and then kind of die back and go away. Or maybe she moved them, or maybe Duncan hit them with the we'd be gone. No one there, but they do get more and more full, and so but they don't go crazy at all. So with anemones, like I said, they're kind of like rocks. They'll get bigger and bigger underground, and then you'll start noticing, like, if you dig it up, where to split it. Like with anemones, I usually use I don't know, like a knife that you'd cut your carrots with. And but a lot of times when they're ready, you can just give them a twist and they'll come apart. So the only time that you would need to go in and divide them really is, ranunculus probably every 3 years, if you're like killing your, well, not killing, but like if you're really good at your ranunculus game. It will probably be like every 3 years or so, maybe, or 4, but they just pop apart really. So once they go dormant, you can dig them up, pop them off, and then spread them out a little bit, or give some to your neighbors if you don't want them. But they are not going to take off like crazy. So yes.
Can you plant them in containers, or does it have to be?
They love being in containers. So yeah, so if you have deer that don't come up onto your deck, that is one of the questions I get asked a ton. And some things don't like containers. I feel like dahlias, if it's a container anything less than 12 inches, it's like growing, and then it's like, wait, did you put me in a pot? And then they just get this attitude, like, grumpy cat, and you're like, yes, you're fine, but ranunculus and anemones love being planted in pots. So that's really helpful for people that live in crazy, same spacing. So anemones, I could probably put like 4 inches apart, and ranunculus, I'd put like 3, and then they're in a pot, so you can even take them out. In terms of, this is the next thing I want to talk about in terms of storing, but yeah, they love being planted in pots. Yes. Size of pot. So it doesn't matter if you have just a 4-inch pot. I don't like to do that because the 4-inch pot can dry out so fast that you do have to babysit, and I don't like to babysit anything. So, I would probably do 12-inch, or it doesn't matter. It's whatever pot size you have. But yeah, ranunculus they're like sweet peas, where if you're growing them, they can't, like, sweet peas could maybe dry for maybe a day, but they really like to keep their feet a little bit wet. And ranunculus and anemones are the same way. If you let them dry out, that will like force them into dormancy early. So you just want to keep them pretty moist, not dripping wet, not in a puddle, but pretty moist. Yes.
Okay, on the subject, do you have to let the foliage dry all the way back naturally? Or can you cut them when they're done? More attractive.
Yes. So the question was, can you let them die back naturally? Or do you have to let them die back naturally? Or can you cut them? Great question. So it depends on what your desires are. So anytime they have green on them, they're photosynthesizing, and they're putting energy into the corm. So if you aren't worried about propagating your ranunculus, or if you like planted in April 1st, your ranunculus, and then you have dahlias to put in,
Right.
like I did that year, then I literally they were blooming for about 3 weeks. They looked amazing. And I just yanked them up and stuck them in a like milk crate, like a bulb crate. So I knew that they were you could transplant them if you wanted to, but they just died. So died in terms of they went dormant then. I just let them dry out. I had 3 weeks of blooms and then I had to get my dahlias in. I was doing it more of an experiment, like, can I plant them April 1st and get some blooms before, and they did. They took off. But I only had time to get about 3 weeks of blooms in. So basically what happens is that the corm it's basically for propagation purposes and storing up nutrients and making it as big as it possibly can get. So if you aren't worried about that, if you are fine with how the corm is, then you can take it out at any time. The thing about storing your corms is that you have to think about them like seeds. So if you are gathering seeds from anything, you always have to set them out and let them dry and just totally dry. Because even if you think they're dry, there can still be a little bit of moisture. And so if you then go and store them, I don't know if like I was doing pumpkin seeds one year with some really cool varieties. And I thought the pumpkin seeds were dry. They'd been on my kitchen counter for like 5 days. I was like, oh, they're good. Threw them in a paper bag and they totally all molded. They were not dry. So with corms, what I usually do, my drying method is to leave them in said milk crate or cardboard box or whatever you want and stick them in the full sun and where they just get crispy. And that's fine. They can handle that. The genetics can handle that. One year, in fact, I had taken them. Oh, it was the year that I did this for my dahlias, the year that I'm talking about. I forgot about those. It was 3 bulb crates worth of ranunculus. We got them put kind of behind our garden bed where out of sight, out of mind for me. And I went in like July and looked and not only was everything like brown and dead, but there was like all these slug trails over them. And I was like, that is so sad to me. That is 3 bulb crates of ranunculus corms. And I was so sad that I just left it there and walked away. And then in October, like right around now, I was clearing out the garden and went and looked and there's just green sprouts. They're like pre-sprouting. And I was like, are you kidding me? I am an Italian ranunculus fan for life. So that's a plug for the Italians. But anyway, so yes, if you do want to store it and if you are wanting to propagate them and make more of them, you do want to leave the leaves on. But it's not like with daffodils where if you cut everything off, they're using that to store the nutrients for the following year. Ranunculus don't need to do that. They're just not going to be any bigger or, they're going to kind of stay the same size. And when you're purchasing them, they come in like 4 different sizes. They'll come, I mean, not that this means anything to you, but it'll be size 2-3, size 3-4, size 4-5, and size 5-7. Some people, when they're selling them, there's not very many people. Like 5 years ago, I was one of the only 2 people in the whole US, I think, that was selling the Italian varieties. But now there's several places that are selling them. But I get size 3-4, and I talk about my size online. But sometimes when you're ordering, you don't know what size you're getting, so you could just order it and end up getting like a size 2-3. And basically, it's kind of like peony roots. You know how you can get roots that have like they'll say 2 to 3 eyes, and then they'll say 3 to 5 eyes, and then they'll say 8+ eyes. And that's basically the age of the plant. So you'll get the bigger it is, the more flowers you'll get from that plant. Oh my gosh, I am like totally going over. I need to switch to peonies. But I have sprinkled a little bit of peony stuff in here. So does that answer your question on
Yes,
that?
thank you.
Okay. So switching to peonies, how many people in here have,
Can
go
I
ahead.
ask one last question before you drop them.
Of course.
Okay, do you leave yours in the ground or are you digging up?
For ranunculus and anemones,
Yeah.
it depends.
Can you repeat?
Oh, yes. The question is, do I leave my anemones and ranunculus in the ground or do I take them out? Most of the time I have to take mine out because I live right, I have a corner lot right in the city, right by, in the city, not Vernon, but, and so I farm between the sidewalk and the street. That's my farm. And so I am constantly flipping beds, constantly recompost, you know, yeah, because I have limited space. So you can leave them in, but if you aren't going to leave them in, you want to save them, you very much need to let them completely dry and then stick them in some place. Just like, you know, if you get corms from me today, like I was saying earlier, they can be anywhere, they just can't freeze. So you want to store them between like 40 and 70 ideally. But yeah, so I hope that answered your question. Yeah. Okay, so peonies. So how many people have tried growing peonies here? Have any Oh my gosh. Well, you guys get up here then and talk. What? Okay, so that is very helpful to me. I'm gonna like fast forward a lot of the basics here and get to some of the good stuff. So oh, I like almost just want to field like peony questions, but so real quick, peonies, they come in roots, and like I was talking about the eyes, they have different sizes. The ones that you get at, you know, Home Depot, the box stores. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. I think it's fine. So at the big box stores, they will usually just have 2 to 3 eyes. You want them to be kind of firm, not spongy. If they're spongy, they're not healthy. They've gotten too dry probably. And the roots that I get a hold of, I sometimes don't get very many varieties because they sell out like this, but it's from the peony roots that I get are from Groot and from Holland. And they will say size 3 to 5 eyes, and they have like 8 to 10. Like I've had like roots, I don't even know how to ship them. I'm like, do I just whack some of this off? So anyway, it's the bigger the root, the better it is in terms of the more established. That said, remember when I talked about like grumpy cats? Peonies are like the grumpy cats of the flower world. They're gorgeous. They like put on the best show in their time. But if you make them move, like if you move them off of their favorite spot on your couch, they're gonna like not even look at you for a year. So that's how peonies are. They don't like to be moved. So when you're planting peonies, you want to make sure a couple of things. One is that you don't plant them too deep. Like I said before, they only want to be planted really, you know, they're kind of weird shapes and sizes, but when they start pushing up their eyes, where you see their eyes, they like to be right on the surface. I mean, if you live in a place that freezes a lot, you could keep them kind of an inch below the surface or give them some a little bit of frost protection. Oh, I need to say that about Anemones and Ranunculus, so I will go back to that. Okay, so yeah, so you don't want to plant them very deep, or so the roots themselves can go down deep, but you just need the eyes to be closer to the surface. And you want to have them in full sun. If you don't have them in pretty full sun, then they're going to green up for you, but they're not going to give you the bulbs or the flowers. Backing up really quick about ranunculus. So I don't think that I said, in terms of frost protection, like, do you guys freeze here? Ooh, what's up? Okay, my friend in Fred at Harvard like never had to deal with freezing. It's where you're at, of course. Yeah, microclimate's on an island. So to deal with all the chuckles, you guys like probably like, I'm zone 7A, I'm 9B where I live. No, not really. So you can use frost cloth. It's a great thing to use. Some like argabon, I think. Argabon fabric is really lightweight. That is a type that you can put on and just lay it directly on top, put some rocks on their corners. That will help probably about 5 degrees or so. If you have any other type of, then the Italians, you don't want them to freeze. Like I mean, at night, you know, it dips down to 30 really quick and then comes back up. That's fine. But like any sort of sustained temperature, you don't want the other varieties to freeze. Italians can for sure get to 28, no problem there. I mean, even maybe 25, especially if it's just a night and then it's able to warm back up. But if it's going to get colder than that and you don't want to babysit it, I would keep frost cloth on it. Unless you are totally fine with your neighbor seeing you in your PJ pants. Because then if you're totally fine with your neighbor seeing you in your PJ pants, you can just go and throw a bed sheet, throw a blanket over them, you know, if you look on your weather app. But yeah, I would probably just keep frost cloth on top. Yes, do you have a question?
Will that work on dahlias?
Not frost cloth. No, I don't know. It won't necessarily. Dahlias basically, if you plant them deep, like 4 to 6, or, 5 to 6 inches deep, that is a huge thing that helps protect them. But when you're planting, well, you guys said the soil's pretty sandy here, which is great. Oh, no. Okay, so not, never mind. Different microclimates and different zones. So, yeah, so that's the hard thing about that you're kind of, weighing against is you're trying to keep them from not freezing, but also they can't be planted in a puddle throughout the rainy season. So we have a lot of clay where we are. And so if you plant them that deep, you're just going down lower and lower towards the water table. So what I like to do with my dahlias is I plant, if you come out to the field, you'll see that they're planted in mounds. And they're just heavily amended with compost. Basically, the mounds are made like half compost. And then you can plant them pretty deep, but they're raised up from the water table. So you know how like you'll be out in your yard and walking in the summer, even after a rain and nothing is squishy, and you go out in February and you're like, why am I in a puddle? Our ground can get more saturated, especially with the clay around, February or so. So I find that putting all of that compost in there, it helps it have really good drainage, but also gives it enough of a snug, that it helps it to stay a little bit warm. If in that case, then you could do some frost cloth or just kind of extra mulch. You can also use extra mulch with your ranunculus and anemones, but you just need to remember that they don't like being planted too deep. So you need to remove that then once they start to wake up. Peonies don't need, switching back to peonies now. Peonies don't need a ton of fertilizer. They actually are one of the flowers that thrive on neglect, I find. Peonies, gladiolas, and anemones, those are like my favorites. You just plant them and forget about them. Another thing about peonies that some people don't know is that there are very early varieties. There's early varieties, there's mid to late, and then very late varieties. So sometimes peonies get a bad rap for not having a very long bloom window. But if you're conscious of that, and get, even if you want like all white, there are varieties of all those different times. So you can have peonies blooming for 8 weeks in your yard. And not just, 3 weeks or 4 weeks from a single variety. So that's something to keep in mind and to look for when you're purchasing. And then also, not every single variety can do this, but in terms of using them as a cut flower, you want to, it's kind of the same thing. You want to wait till they're at marshmallow stage or not even. You can go ahead and cut them when they're a hard ball, just when they're starting to color up, but it does need to have some of that color on there or they're not gonna open for you very well. But with peonies, the most amazing thing is that you can cut them, have them be completely dry. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of this. Wrap them in like some brown paper or newspaper, pop, like that's it. So they're completely dry, and stick them in your fridge. And they will hold there for 6 to 8 weeks, just like that. And then, you have like a baby shower, or, you're like thinking, because they have the smaller bloom window. And then you can go, basically all you do is the day before you want to use them, you pop them out of the fridge, you hold the stem under, you run the water on the kitchen sink, hold the stem under the water, cut it, let it sit there for a couple seconds, pop it up. The quicker you want it to open, the warmer you want the water. You obviously don't want the water super hot, but if you're like, oh, it's actually this afternoon, guys, let's go. You're going to want to have it be pretty warm water. If not, just room temperature. And in the next day, they will open like, guys, it's crazy. It's so cool. It's the coolest trick. So if you have a peony that's really prone to, like getting brown and kind of like dying off really early, those varieties don't usually store super well. But there are some varieties that will store 8 weeks, no problem in your fridge. I don't think you want to buy citrus. I think that's bad. But yeah, you can just, or if you have like a garage fridge with drinks in it, something like that, go pop them in there, and literally they're just wrapped in newspaper or brown bags. It's amazing. Yes, I'm trying to think of anything. Oh, this is kind of like a broad thing, but I always love to give people this information. And that is when you're wanting to extend the vase life of any flower, basically, other than like poppies are weird, you know, you can light their ends kind of on fire. And that will help them, which is so weird. But with 95% of cut flowers, you can, the thing that lasts, even, you know, people use holding solution, florists will use holding solution. People like, oh, put a little bit of Sprite in the water, put a little bit of this or that or whatever. The thing that I have found in 20 years that majorly extends the vase life is to, once you're at your final cut. So like I did bouquets, like market bouquets at Christensen's nursery for a couple years, and I would get the entire bouquet all the way ready, and then I'd have a bucket of water sitting there, and I dunk the end, and I do the final cut underwater. People would come back the next week of like 5-day vase life flowers and say, oh, I don't need another bouquet. Mine are still looking good. And I'm like, what? That's amazing. So another thing that you can do to extend vase life is not have it in the full sun, and not have them sit on top of your fireplace, like your automatic fireplace. I had a doctor that I would deliver bouquets to once a week, and the lady behind the front desk said, your bouquets are only lasting 2 days. And I was like, oh my goodness, you know, because I thought maybe they had like a heat vent blowing on them. I was like, well, where are they? She's like, right there. And she pointed, and she puts them right on top of their electric fireplace in their waiting room. And I was like, well, that's all you're gonna get if you wanna put them there. So anyway, yeah, try not to have them in your fireplace. So yes.
So the type of water that you use,
Mhm.
does that make a difference if it's been filtered or if it's tap or
Oh, you're talking about with flowers.
with flowers?
That is probably depends on the specific
The water
quality, specific water quality.
bleach or what?
Yeah, and then also the specific cut flower that you're talking about too.
Okay.
Like some will be more sensitive, like zinnias will be fine, I think, whatever it is. The kind of hardier stemmed ones, I don't think it's going to make a very big difference, but yeah, so that it's probably, yeah. It just depends probably on the flower. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So, I have peonies in a pot, one per pot,
Mm-hmm.
and they're big pots, but, when they are starting to have the flowers, large black ants will like to be, are they harming anything?
That's a great question. She said that what she has her peonies start to bloom. They get a little bit sticky when they're in that ball, before they've bloomed, and the ants will come. The ants are totally fine. If you don't like ants, that you don't need to like ants. But if you're bringing your peonies inside, a lot of times what I do is I'll have a bucket of water sitting there, or like fill up a bucket in my kitchen sink. And especially if you're getting them in that bud phase and you've got ants, I just kind of swish them around, like turn them upside down and swish the bloom around. And this goes for dahlia. This goes for a lot of flowers, but peonies are specific that they have ants like that. So yeah, I just give them a swish, or you can, if you're out there with your hose, just turn it on a little bit stronger. And if you don't like seeing the ants, but they're not hurting your plants at all. So yeah, that's a great question. Yeah.
So, I inherited a peonies tree.
Oh, yes.
A friend of mine, and there were big yellow blooms, like huge, big yellow blooms.
Yeah.
Same pot. I've had it for 3 years. Every year I get some blooms, but they never open.
What?
It's sort of like, you can see that it wants to,
Mm-hmm.
but it does not open for 3 years now.
Oh,
I
good
don't know
gravy.
What I'm doing wrong.
I don't either. And I'm not so like I grow and sell lactiflora peonies. I don't do tree peonies. So the question was about tree peonies. She had established plant in a pot that was huge yellow blooms, and then brought it to your place. So something about the environment. It's not
She lived on the shoreline and I don't.
okay. So that's it. Yeah.
That's the only difference.
Yeah. So she lived on the shoreline and you don't live on the shoreline. Do you have it in full sun?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know so much about that either. And I'm not a huge expert at all on tree peonies. So there is a peony society that would be great to answer that, and probably very excited to answer. Yeah. And they're a very fun group. Oh my gosh. They're like you guys, like we have the bug, we are the same people. So yeah, that's how they are too. So, any other questions? Yes, Ginger.
So, a friend of mine hated a peony, and she asked me to come and dig it up.
Okay.
And it was the middle of summer, she hadn't watered it. I have very low hopes. When I dug it up, it just completely fell apart into different little rootlets.
Okay.
So I planted them, I mean, I had no expectation.
Right.
I had a big tub. I put them all in the big tub and they all survived. They grew, one even bloomed this summer. Wow.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. And there must be at least 9 or 10 plants in there. What do I do with them? I need to get out of that tub. When do I transplant them? Can I put them in like a gallon container? Because I want to give them to friends.
Oh, yeah.
I don't need.
That was gonna be my first question. So Ginger had like basically a huge established peony that her friend didn't want anymore. She went to dig it up in the middle of summer because your friend was a little bit impatient. And the roots just fell apart, didn't have a lot of high hopes, planted it in another pot, and they're just all going crazy. So now, like, what do you do with all of these little peony roots that are taking off and even got a bloom on them first year, which is just amazing. So best time to transplant peonies is in the fall. So you can start that. You could do it also in the spring. It's just that fall time, they're going to be dormant anyway. And so remember how they're temperamental for a year, you get like 8 months under your belt if you do it in the fall. And also in terms of watering, they just get to establish a little bit more without you having to babysit them with watering. So yes, you can put them all in like a 10-inch or 10-inch pot should be just, it depends on how big the roots are. So you can put the roots in a pot that's just big enough for it. And then it will start growing roots. But honestly, if you want to give it away to friends, peonies do great as bare roots too. So if you want to establish them in pots, it's going to take a whole year for their roots to get kind of like established. And then they're going to be kind of mad when they're moved anyway. So if you could just dig them up, and even if you're going to mail them to people, I would do that in the fall.
So dig them up, let them dry out?
No, you don't want
I'm
to.
just gonna give the roots.
Yeah, you don't need to let them dry out. So, yeah, I mean, you want them to be a tiny bit moist. So peony roots, if they dry out, will end up getting spongy and die, and not like the whole thing. Like sometimes the ends start to get spongy. So then you cut our certain sections, and they can also mold. So you don't want to keep them too wet, but I would just keep them like on a table in the garage, like some place that has a little bit of airflow, and then get them to wherever you want them to be so that they can get planted and start establishing. But yeah, you can also plant them up in pots that you don't want to cram the roots in, just so however shape the root is, you can get a pot that's that shape. And yeah, just make sure that it's well draining and the roots or the eyes are pretty close to the surface. No more than an inch below. So yes.
All right, I just looked up the nature's intent on purpose, and it's 724. So it's pretty low from the 10-10-10.
Yes.
But is that what you're using pretty
That
much all over the place?
it is, yeah. So that's great. She looked up the nature's intent, and it's 724. So nitrogen is 7 there. So that would be great then for you guys out here, I feel like, because and I like the really, really low numbers too, especially the nitrogen being a little bit higher for that. If your soil is kind of low at nitrogen. But that is what I use on everything, just because I'm a lazy gardener. So I'm not lazy. That's a negative word. I'm a busy gardener. So I put but it's such low numbers, if that makes sense, so that you're not like goosing something and going to burn it or really dramatically change your soil.
So how often do you do that? You start that out kind of in the spring, and then
It depends on whenever I'm flipping my beds. So whenever I take something out and put something back in, I am putting at least 3 inches of compost back in, and then sprinkling nature's intent on it. And so if these are established plants that you are not, like if you have a ranunculus bed and you don't want to dig it up and you just want your ranunculus to be there, and you can even companion plant it with something else. if you do that, some people will be like, oh, my ranunculus didn't come back the next year. So if they didn't freeze and they didn't, ooh, there's one more thing that I need to say about, and that's pests. We talked about deer, but we didn't talk about squirrels and bunnies. So, slugs, leave them alone. Slugs do not go after, I mean, I don't know about island slugs, but, I don't think that's, I'm not sure that that's a thing. But, so yeah, please report back on island slugs, but, yeah, they usually leave them alone. So, but see, now I lost my train of thought again.
Pests.
You have the fertilizer when you're.
Bunnies.
Yes. Okay, yes. So, yes, remind me pests. I'm gonna get back to pests. So, again, what did you just
Yeah, the
say?
fertilizer whenever you're turning.
Yes, but add the fertilizer. So if you are having an established bed, and yeah, that's what it is. I would fertilize that at least twice a year. And then, it's kind of hard to, like, maybe in like every 2 years or 3 years. If you've got anemones and ranunculus in there, you could, like pop them up anyways, because you're going to be seeing if the, corms are getting too ginormous, but then you could recompost and then stick them back down just anytime they go dormant. So they're going to go dormant in the spring, or sorry, they're going to go dormant in late spring, summer, once it hits like 80 degrees or so. And so that's a good time to recompost. I just, because I'm a busy gardener, when I'm giving them attention, I just give them all the attention and then I leave it. So it might be better if you're composting to then wait till the fall when they start to wake up again and kind of give them, if you want to stagger the nutrients. But then again, the Italians are so resilient that I don't really worry about when. So just twice a year would be fantastic to give them fertilizer. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
Bunnies and.
Oh, thank you. Pests. Already forgot about that. Okay. So the first 3 years, voles don't usually go after them yet. Yeah, which is amazing because they took out my sweet pea, my entire sweet pea line this year, guys. Like, we are not having sweet peas because they ate them all. Which is ridiculous because it's about like 600 feet of sweet peas. So anyway, I'm not bitter. So pests. So squirrels, and this goes for any like fall bulbs that you plant. So if you're putting in like irises or daffodils or anything like that, the squirrels don't eat the bulbs, but they are like little ninja robbers. And so if they see newly disturbed dirt, they're like, oh, I want that. Like, that's mine. So anytime you're planting anything in the fall, what I do is do not go inside. If you have island squirrels or like squirrels like where I live, they're like watching me, I'm convinced, from the trees. And I'll go inside and like shift a load of laundry and come back out and be like, what? So do not pass go, do not collect $200. Go, what I do is I go to the like edges of my yard or like under trees where like twigs and leaves and stuff have grown, we can get leaves, sprinkle those on top in a pretty, layer so that they cannot see the soil that someone just did anything there. That will camouflage the fact that it's newly disturbed soil. You can totally move it in like a month and then they're gonna be like, what's up? There's nothing there, And so that's how I get around the squirrels. Bunnies will not eat your anemones, but they will go after your ranunculus. So what I suggest if you have tons of bunnies is putting them in a raised bed. I've only heard of one ninja bunny that somehow ended up in this woman's 24-inch tall pot, which is ridiculous. I'm like, was it a jackrabbit? She's like, no, it's just a tiny bunny. I come out every morning and it's just like waiting for me. I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. So, but usually if it's over 15 inches in a pot or in a raised bed, bunnies aren't going to get up there. But it depends on your bunnies. So they love ranunculus. So those are the 3 things that can be trouble with them and how to. Yeah. So yes, I have, my company is called the Dahlia House. I have a website online. That's just thedahliahouse.com. And if you're on Instagram, we are the.dahlia.house. And you can see really, there's like so many pictures of my beautiful dahlia fields and flowers. It's so inspiring. So yes, right now we have online, we have all of our anemone. We just got the new shipment. So right now we have the most anemones and ranunculus that we're going to have in stock over the next year available. So that's what we have offering right now. We're about to put up a bunch of freesia and gladiolas, but not quite yet. And then a few, we have a handful of peonies that we're offering this year, but those are about to, they're not going to hit just yet. And then our dahlia tuber sale, we have over this year in the field, I think we have 550 varieties. We will probably have about 400 of those for purchase, but they're not going to be, we're going to store them, divide them, make sure they're super healthy, and they will go for sale probably in February. The best way to know what's happening is to sign up for our newsletter. I do not give very many newsletters at all, so I'm really actually pretty bad about that, but I give the important ones. So if you're wondering dahlia tubers, if you're wanting ranunculus, you sign up, and then I will tell you when those sales are or when they're about to happen so that you can know. So.
And Anne, is this something we buy online, or do we go to Mount Vernon, or how does that
That's
work?
a great question. So where we live, I'm not allowed to sell from my house because I'm within city or like have people come to my house. So I don't have a physical location because my house is my business. So yes, it's mostly online. That said, I do some in-person events. So and most of them are usually at Christensen's nursery. I do classes over there and sell a lot of product through the nursery. So
Great.
yeah.